All right, what's going on? So in this video, I'm going to be covering what does it cost to play college golf. And so you're going to see me referring to my notes a little bit during this video because it's a little bit detailed here. But I wanted to make sure that those of you who are kind of looking into this, maybe you have a junior golfer who wants to play college golf and kind of wondering, like, what does this all entail? I wanted to actually kind of do a deep dive and help you understand the three main things that you're going to be paying for and kind of how to evaluate how much like just whether or not the money that you're spending is really worth it. And so first and foremost, we got to say this out of the gate, this is going to be a little bit of a reality check. So some of you guys watching this, you might see these numbers and be like, wow, that's a lot. And in part, that's kind of the goal, is to help you understand like what this actually requires and how difficult it is to play college golf. Golf's the expensive sport. It's not the same thing as like if your child is going out there and playing soccer. If you're looking to do things in the cheapest way possible, you're probably going to fail. And that's different than having like limited resources or something like that, and then making the most of them. But just have that context. Also, when we think about elite level golf instruction, we're thinking coaching that might cost as much as $500 per hour. Less than $250 an hour, $200 an hour. Really kind of gets into the range of where you're probably working with a golf instructor who's kind of closer to the beginning of their career. And that's just something to kind of be aware of. If you're looking for $75 lessons, that's not going to be an elite level of instruction. And there's not a really great chance that that's going to be the best information that your child could be getting. So that's just kind of like right out the gate for some context here. And it's also important to understand it's not about the quantity of times you see your coach. It's about the quality of instruction and the touch points that you get. So when I talk to a lot of parents, they might be having their child see their coach weekly, and they might just be teaching the same lesson over and over and over and over again. And that's cool from a golf coach perspective, but from your child's development, if they're taking the same lesson every single week, that kind of tells you that they're not really learning a whole lot in that lesson, or they're not very impactful. So don't shy away from spending a little bit more money for a more impactful kind of long-term development plan. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this. So there's three main things you're going to spend money on. You're going to spend money on equipment and like golf courses. So that's like golf clubs, golf balls, golf course. If you have a country club or you're playing public golf courses, all that type of stuff, you're going to be paying for that no matter what. You're going to be paying for instruction. So getting golf lessons for your junior golfer or anything else that they might need, whether it's mindset or, what have you. And then you're also going to have to pay for tournaments. So you're going to have to, go to different events. There's going to be registration fees. You're going to have hotels if you're traveling, all sorts of stuff like that. So that's just kind of like the high level there. And I'm going to kind of dig through each one of these on their own here. So what does each one of these really cost? I'm going to focus on two of them. Equipment is going to be very variable based on kind of like where exactly you're at. Just kind of like high level on that without getting too far into the weeds. You might pay, anywhere between $2,000 and $5,000 for like a fully fitted golf bag. And that's going to change as your child gets older. When they're just starting out, they don't need the same customization that they do when they get older. But that's a more complex video for another time. Just as far as context with instruction, how much does usually cost? This is just something I grabbed from golf.com. The average family is spending about $10,000 per year on instruction. So that's just kind of like a starting point. How much does it cost? About $10,000 per year in instruction is kind of like standard. Now, another really important thing to kind of take into consideration here is that might sound like a lot, but you need to recognize that it's actually harder to get into and play at a Division I program than it is to get into Harvard. The acceptance rate at Harvard is essentially 3.6%, versus going on to play Division I golf is about 1.6%. So when we think about like what does that entail? What kind of commitment are you making? You would never have, your child be a junior or a sophomore in high school and be like, oh, maybe we'll go to Harvard or something like that. You would actually want to be able to say, okay, cool. We've got a plan. We've been executing on this plan for however many years. We're going to put ourselves in a position where we've got the GPA, we've got the extracurriculars, we've got all this different stuff that we know is important in order to put ourselves in a good position here. Now, kind of switching gears, what about tournaments? There are kind of 6 stages that your junior golfer is going to go through in terms of their development, and this will kind of tie into how you should be picking tournaments. First thing is like, can they go out and can they shoot a score on 9 holes? If they can't play 9 holes for a score, that's where they need to start. That's where most young junior golfers start. 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old. That's what they're doing. They're playing 9 holes. They probably, they're elite. They're playing them really well, but that's step 1. Step 2, can they do that for 18 holes, right? Can we put two sets of 9 holes together? It's a little bit of an endurance thing. Again, at no point in here do we really need tournaments. Could we have tournaments? Sure. But you don't need them, right? So this is just helping you guys understand there's money that you can spend because you want to, like, I don't know, a TrackMan. And then there's money you can spend because you should spend it because you're serious about helping your child accomplish their goals, right? Whether or not you pay for tournaments when they're 7 has nothing to do with whether or not you're serious about helping them accomplish their goals. Next one here is, can they shoot scores for 36 holes? Most elite events, all ranked events, especially on Junior Golf Scoreboard, are going to be 36-hole events. So if your junior golfer is not able to string together 2 rounds of golf, well, then they're really going to struggle. So that's the next stage there. And again, it's a little bit of an endurance thing. Then from there, it's like, okay, cool. Can they do that in local tournaments, right? So now we can actually shoot the scores. We can play 36-hole events. We can start to stack up a calendar. Then you kind of intuitively can look at that and be like, well, do we want to be playing 36-hole events every single weekend? That might become a lot. Now we say, okay, maybe it's just 2 events per month or 1 event per month. That's where you kind of start to have these things kind of fill themselves in. And you can also look at the way that your junior golfer is playing and say, okay, we're trending in the right direction with our instruction, or there's some problems that we need to have filled in with our instruction, right? So all these things fit together. The 5th stage is, can they get their scoring average 72 to 74 in tournaments in their local area? So this one's huge. This is going to really dictate whether they play college golf broadly. If they can have a scoring average of 74, in whatever tournaments they're playing in, they're essentially guaranteed to play college golf. The question then becomes, do we play Division 1? Do we play Division 2, or do we play Division 3? And that kind of ties us into the last stage here, stage 6. Can they keep that scoring average in elite tournaments? Another kind of context for the 72 to 74 scoring average is this is going to make it so that they're able to very easily qualify for any of the bigger events. So again, these are kind of the stages that your junior golfer is going to go through. And a lot of the time people kind of try and leapfrog these different stages, and they start worrying about rankings before they have a scoring average that's decent, or they start worrying about trying to get into particular tournaments before that scoring average is taken care of. They kind of mismanage where they put things. And as a result of that, they also end up mismanaging how they go ahead and use their resources. So now let's kind of switch gears here a little bit and talk about fixed costs versus variable costs, right? Some things are, they're just their costs. They're going to be there no matter what. And there's other things that we can kind of move around. We can kind of change. So equipment is going to be variable based on kind of what your child needs. They might have periods of time where they don't need to update their stuff. And then there's going to be times where they need to get an entire new bag. That could be because of wear. That could be because of, they went through a growth spurt, any number of things, right? But that's going to kind of, move around. You're not going to have one consistent amount that you need to expect to spend every single year. But that's something to just kind of expect. Same thing with like a golf course. There's going to be a monthly cost associated with that. Tournaments, same thing. It's going to be variable based on what your child needs. Obviously, probably in December, they're not playing as much tournament golf as they are in July or August, right? So that's going to be somewhat variable. And you can also add or subtract tournaments based on kind of what your child needs and what makes sense for you guys as a family. So that's the next step there. Instruction is going to be relatively fixed, and it's going to be fixed for a pretty long period of time. And so this is just kind of how that structure ends up working out. But the real question we want to be able to ask is an expense worth it? Does it make sense to actually spend that money in that particular area? Well, with tournaments, I already kind of went over that. And so you want to use that rubric to really determine, is this tournament worth it, right? So if your child can't shoot, rounds of golf for 36 holes, like back-to-back days, then it really makes the most sense to say, okay, maybe we play in a tournament here or there because, let's get some tournament reps or something like that. But at the end of the day, if you didn't do that, it wouldn't really matter that much either, because the main thing that your junior golfer needs to get comfortable with is playing 36 holes. So once they're comfortable with that and they can say, yep, I can do that, well, then you'd want to strategically say, okay, cool, let's go play 36 hole events and let's start getting some scores. Let's get a ranking and see where we're at. And then we can move on to step 2, which is really double down and say, all right, how do we get these scores down as fast as possible? And so that usually kind of falls back into the instruction category. That's something I do with my students, where I say, like, okay, cool, this is what our numbers are telling us. Here's where we need to focus. And how do we get those scores down as fast as possible? That's going to be the biggest hurdle. And then once we have that, then we can start to be a little bit more strategic about which tournaments we play in. Equipment. We really want to make this decision based on, if we're improving the equipment because, like, let's say your child got faster, like they're swinging their driver faster, and now the shaft that they had in their driver was too soft, and now it's better, or and now they need something stiffer. That's almost guaranteed to be worthwhile. And you guys will kind of see that a little bit in a second. I'm going to go over another concept, cost per shot. But almost always improving your child's equipment, if it's necessary, is almost always a good investment. There's pretty much no way you can really overdo this. The way you could overdo it is like get a TrackMan. That's going to kind of blow out your math. But aside from that, like if your child needs a better driver, go ahead and do that. Same deal with, like, if they have a putter that's causing them a real problem, it's worth it to just get another one. Now, instruction is a little bit harder to kind of grasp, because when we go and get a golf lesson, every golf lesson sounds the same, especially if you're not already an expert in it, which you're not, because you're going and getting a golf lesson, or your child's going and getting a golf lesson. It's really hard to kind of determine, all right, what are we getting here? And I kind of alluded to this at the beginning. Price is a good way to kind of understand what you're getting. Now, it's not 100% the thing. There are some questionable, golf lessons out there, but for the most part, if you're paying, $400 for an hour for a golf lesson, that's going to be a higher quality lesson than the $75 an hour golf lesson. But we want to be able to have a little bit more clarity on that as well, because we don't want to just be looking for a deal, and we don't want to just be looking to spend the maximum amount of money on instruction either. We want to have a ratio in here. And that's what I call cost per shot. We want to be able to look at how much are we spending and how much improvement is that purchasing for us. Because if we were to kind of like step back and look at everything that's going on here, what we really have is, where are we playing, right? That's the tournaments that we're playing in. How are we getting seen? How are we getting out there? And then the rest of it is just, how do we lower our scores as fast as possible? How do we spend money to cause that to happen? And so that's why I said with the equipment, if you go and let's say you need to replace a driver shaft and it costs $500 to replace the driver shaft. Well, if your child goes out there and now they hit 4 more fairways or 1 fewer ball out of bounds, or they, hit a little bit further off the tee, well, the probability that all adds up to about a shot is pretty dang high. And as you'll see in a second here, if you're paying $500 per shot, that's incredible. Like that's a great deal. So you want to do that as many times as you can. So that's why with the equipment, if you need to pull that trigger, pull that trigger. So like I said, average cost of instruction is about $10,000 per year. And that's just going off of golf.com. The average improvement, and this is my own research here, but based on Junior Golf Scoreboard, the average player improves by about 1.18 shots per year. So a lot of the time when I talk to junior golfers, they're looking at, how do I improve by, 3, 5, 10 shots in a year? And that just doesn't happen. You don't have your junior golfer going from shooting 90 to 80 in a year. Typically, you don't see them going from 80 to 70 in a year. You don't really see them going 80 to 75 in a year. The progressions in golf are much more incremental. And it's important to kind of have that context, because we can kind of get patient, say, oh, we need to improve really, really fast. And we can kind of miss out on stuff. My other videos go over that a little bit more. But for this context, just say, all right, cool, we're spending $10,000 per year. That's normal. So if we're not comfortable doing that, just recognize you're at a disadvantage. Like you're already kind of behind the eight ball if you're not comfortable with that. And that's a big part of this video, just helping you guys understand what to be comfortable with. This is the average improvement. So if you just kind of go to, Joe Schmo golf instructor, just kind of doing your best to find a good golf instructor, but kind of standard, do the standard thing, maybe see them weekly, bi-weekly, quarterly, monthly, something along those lines. Pretty normal stuff. You go and see them. This is about how much you should expect to improve. So the cost per shot is about $8,500, right? So if you have that context and you can say, okay, cool, if I can buy a shot for better than $8,500, for $5,000 or $2,000, whatever, that's a great deal, which is why I kind of said, with the driver example, that's a really good decision to make with the resources that you have available to you. Now, with golf instruction, again, that's kind of the evaluation you want to have, because you might have instruction that seemingly costs more, but it causes your child to improve faster. For example, when I work with players, they improve by about 2.71 shots per year, right? As opposed to 1.18 shots. So when we're doing math and saying, okay, cool, your child is, a freshman and we've got 3 years ahead of us to get their scores down as fast as possible. Well, we're not looking at saying, okay, well, I hope we're already within 3 or 4 shots of our target. We can say, okay, well, I hope we're, within like 7 to 9 shots of our target, right? We're able to have a little bit more wiggle room though. So that's kind of the way to be looking at all this stuff. And that's really the way to evaluate what things cost. So you're going to have your equipment. You're going to have your golf course stuff. That's going to be somewhat variable. And you can be kind of flexible with that. Tournaments, you can be super flexible with that. You can move that around. You don't need to play tons and tons of tournaments. You only need like 4 tournaments that are ranked to actually stay ranked. So it's not really that big of a bar. The major thing that you're going to be spending money on is golf instruction. And that's across the board on everything. And that's the thing you want to be really shrewd with, to say, okay, cool, what is going to cause us to improve as much as possible, and really view it through that lens. So I hope this video is helpful for you guys in just kind of understanding what it entails in order to go and help your child play college golf, and kind of what you should expect in terms of the different expenses that go into it. So like I said, hope this video was helpful for you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.